Welcome to the ripple effect of love for dads and families. Hope all is well today and can your emotions be your GPS? Great question to be asking, right? Our emotions play such a big role and sometimes we have no idea because we have not been taught. Let me mute this. We have not been taught to look at our emotions as our GPS. In today's world, when you're driving, it's so easy to just keep going, put the GPS on and drive, and it says turn right, turn left. You don't have to learn all the directions like we used to in the past. And I love having that. So, what if your anger or your sadness or even your stress weren't bad? They were just messages to help you follow your own personal GPS. Interesting question, isn't it? Have you ever thought of that before? So let's take a deep breath. How can my emotions be my GPS? And I'll put both hands up on this one. Our emotions are trying to tell us something. And today we're going to break that down and see how we can view this as a different perspective if you didn't already have that perspective, right? Because we all have different perspectives. We were all educated different ways. And for some dads, this is like, yeah, I know this, Christine, no worries. Maybe you've got a tip or two I can learn. But for some other dads, it's like, what are you talking about? So it is well known that children need to express their emotions. And dads were particularly told, don't cry, don't be a baby, right? And that has affected you. Girls were told to sit and be quiet and be cute. So we each have our own set of instructions that were given to us. And I was just talking to a client recently and they were saying, oh, yeah, my parents were loving. Yes, they were. I'm not questioning that your parents were loving or not. I'm saying, this is what I'm saying. How did your little guy, your little boy inside of you perceive the instructions they were given? What were the emotions you felt at that moment? Did you feel did you feel anger when you were told to not cry? You had all these emotions that were spilling over. That's why you're crying. And instead of being asked, "Oh, how do you feel? You're sad? Are you angry? Are you frustrated? What else? What other emotion are you feeling?" We're told, "Suck it up. You're a boy." Right? Ever heard those ones before? Hmm, I'm sure you have. As a teacher, I've heard parents say that to their children. And it always like, how can you say that to your kids? You can't say that to your kids. And they didn't have the same education. Um, I was told not to cry because I was sensitive and they couldn't handle it. They didn't know what to do when I would cry. So these are all emotions that guide us. And because we didn't allow these emotions to come up when we were little, well, now we've got aches and pains showing up in our body. Now, I know this is not mainstream thinking, and it's okay. You don't have to believe me. I'm just asking you to ponder. I'm planting a seed to see if it grows or not. Just start noticing. However, as a dad, if you're not ready to look within you, look within your child. Give that gift of using their emotions as their inner GPS on how to read. How do you read this? Well, For me, it's kind of simple. You depending on the age of the child, right? If they're just very tiny and I remember being somewhere at an event and this mom arrived and she looked frazzled. And I said, would you like me to take your baby for a minute while you get undressed at least and walk in? And she's like, oh, sure. So I take the baby and the baby was fine. And then all of a sudden started crying. And she's like, oh, I think it's feeding time. So I just tapped a bit on a few meridian points. The baby looked at me and then became quiet, looked around, and and then all of a sudden started crying again. I said, "Yeah, mom, baby is ready to eat now." Mom got an extra 2 minutes. Hey, it's not much, you may say, but for those moms or those dads that are taking care of these infants, it's a big deal to have an extra minute or two sometimes just to get ready and organized, right? Instead of having the infant crying the whole way. Yes, they can cry because their basic needs aren't met, but they can also cry for other things because we take a toy away, because. So, what can frustration mean? Well, what does it mean? When you are frustrated, I want you to take a deep breath in. What happened to make you frustrated? And frustration, in my perspective and in the way I've done it, I don't associate frustration means A and guilt means B. And I don't know, anxiety. Anxiety for sure is a fear of the future, but what part of the future, right? Not everything. We are functional, even though we have anxiety. It could be the finances, but it could also be, am I good enough, dad? Am I doing a great enough job? That can cause some anxiety. It can also cause some guilt, right? Because you feel guilty that you're not giving everything you want to give. If you're working a lot and you don't have much time to spend for you with your child or children, you may feel guilty about the time you spend with them. So it will vary from person to person on your situation. So that's why you need to become, um, you need to listen to that inner GPS because it's giving you information. If you have guilt because you're not spending enough time with your children, the question needs to be then, what can I shift, change? Can I be more present in the time that I'm there so that I don't feel guilty? Is that the right question to be asking? Or is it, how can I organize my schedule so I have more time with my child? I loved traveling with my children and we would play games in the car. I spy with my little eye. I had like 5 8-hour drives to go see my parents when they were little. And they had fun. It wasn't like as soon as they'd say, "Oh, I'm bored," in the beginning, I'd create the games. But after a while, it was like, "Oh, can you think of a fun game we can do?" And they would find games that we could play, and we'd look at clouds and see what shape of clouds. This cloud looks like a dinosaur. This cloud, can you see the dinosaur in the sky? And of course, if you're driving, you'll be able to look careful. But at least the children are having fun looking out the window, trying to find that dinosaur, and time goes by much faster. So, when frustration, when our expectations, that's the first thing that's popping up in my case. But what is it that frustrates you? Is it because your expectations aren't met? Is it because you don't feel things are fair? You're doing more than your spouse with the kids or vice versa, and you want things to be more equal. So it's really, really important to just look at how it's showing up for you. Because when these emotions come up, it means, well, before I say that, I have this image in my picture in my mind. I'm picturing this image in my mind. There we go. So person A here is going through the day, they're singing, they're doing the dishes, and they've got as much work as person B. But person B is going around in the day and is frustrated and overwhelmed. And so, what's the difference? There's a perspective difference. And our emotions will help us bring changes because we're all different, right? Maybe this person chose to be home all the time and is awesome at it, and it's their fifth kid and it's just rolling along, right? While this person, it's a new child, lots of insecurities, not too sure how to do it, wants to do it differently from the parents because their parents did it all the wrong way. And it's a challenge. It's a lot of energy and focus to be able to create a better environment, a home with more harmony. Or maybe this parent is not sleeping well while this parent is sleeping well. So there are so many different aspects that we need to look at. So, how can we turn emotions into action? Because if you leave it the way it is, the person here who's frustrated and angry will still be frustrated and angry tomorrow because she still didn't or he still didn't get enough sleep, right? So, how do you bring about that change so that things start evolving towards more harmony in the home? I'm not saying that every day is going to be like this. I mean, we are human beings, and so are our children, and so are our spouses. And we're triggered by things we hear on the radio. We're triggered by things we hear, in our with our friends, in our community, at school, maybe, So it's super important to just take a deep breath, first of all. And what's one emotion you'd like to understand better right now? I'd like you to drop that below in the chat. And maybe you'd be willing to do a little bit of snap, tap, zap so that we can turn that emotion into an action. So let's snap, breathe in as we tap on the sternum, relax the shoulders, and exhale that out onto the spiraling train, just letting it all go. Whatever that one emotion is. Breathing in, relaxing the shoulders, and exhaling. And of course, if it's at work, I don't think you want to be tapping on your sternum in a meeting. So you can tap on your fingertips like this or like this under the table while you breathe in and release the frustration of that person that keeps saying the same thing, but just in different words. And it's annoying because you've got lots of work to do and you want the meeting to be over, for example. I don't know. Or what they're saying doesn't make any sense. And you're looking at the faces of everybody and you're like, nobody agrees, right? Whatever it may be. So taking a deep breath. And exhale that onto the spiraling train. And notice, is your amygdala calming down? Your survival mode, your anxiety, your fear, your frustration, your guilt, is that calming down a little bit? Has it calmed down at least below a 5 out of 10? So breathe in again. Notice how strong is it out of 10? 10 out of 10, it's extreme. 0, you don't feel it at all anymore. So you want to bring it down at least to 4 out of 10 or lower in order for your prefrontal cortex, to be able to think clearly and take action. I'm sure you've seen somebody that's in survival mode before, and their actions, you're like, this person usually is really smart and they're just doing all these crazy decisions right now. They're in survival mode. Is it possible to be in survival mode 24/7? Yeah, I was there. Takes a lot more work once you get out of it or to get out of it and to release a lot of the stuff underneath, but it is possible. So, in the world of EFT, I haven't talked much about EFT. Maybe I can talk about that a bit more tomorrow and see. Yeah, when we talk about our wins, maybe I can talk a little bit more about EFT and how that works. And there's a whole protocol in EFT. It's a lot more, it's more complex than Snap Tap Zap. And that's why I had created Snap Tap Zap so that parents and children would have something super easy that they can implement to just at least take the edge off and sometimes completely off and just bring it back to zero. I've done it with kids that were afraid of the dark, right? How much energy do we spend trying to get our little ones to not be afraid of the dark? We try lights, there's a gazillion ideas out there. You can Google it, and you can do Snap Tap Zap and see what happens with your child. I had a child that wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. And I think did 5, 6 rounds. It will be different for each child. It depends if there's trauma behind it or no trauma, right? So it's respecting that. And oh, sorry, there's a hair in my eye. I'm trying to get it out, but it doesn't want to come out. Okay. And you know that frustration, that guilt, that anxiety, oops, sorry, it's because there's a fear behind it. It's because your brain is in survival mode. So when you listen, what part of me is in survival mode right now? What is it that I need to do that will bring forward something even better? My better version of myself? It's very important, in my opinion, anyway. So I will wish you all the best and hope you start listening to your inner GPS and find some of those solutions. If you need help, here's my QR code. Enjoy. And I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. And I believe